Hello and welcome. Today we're going to try and work on this Shimano Ultegra 6770 rear derailleur. I think this was a 10 speed or 11 speed, I can't remember quite, not to matter. I've actually added a jockey wheel cage from another derailleur to illustrate. This one's actually just for parts, and I think there was only a short cage, but there was possibly a mid-cage version with this, or the longer cage. So let's begin. We're going to need a number 3 to take off this jockey wheel bolt. You're going to need to open this up slightly to get a better grip or better reach for the other one. So still having it open, we're going to remove this small bolt here. I do want to just point out, be seriously careful when you're working with these with your fingers. I've pinched my finger twice now. On this cage, it suddenly snaps open and closed. This is obviously not like a typical traditional derailleur, so be very careful with that. It's quite painful. So we're going to hold this open. Again, be careful with your fingers putting it in between the cages where it closes. There's a small bolt right here to unscrew, which is going to give us this detension, the spring for one, and give us access to the bottom knuckle. Once I've done that, you can turn around. Here you have number 5. Unfortunately, these develop quite a bit of play. I think it's because it's grinding into the metal, or some part inside here is grinding into the metal, and then this part here has a play. You can't really rectify that unless you put a ring maybe behind this very thin one. Okay, so I've unscrewed that bolt, and now you'll be able to open this up. You'll have on the top here a ring, which doesn't seem to be popping. Now it's come off. There you go. And you can actually push through this bolt here as well. It's quite hard, this one. I don't seem to be getting it off. I'm going to use the number 5 to see if it budges. There you go. It's coming off now. Done. So at the back here, there's already a very thin ring. So in the interior, there's a spring. Looks like the spring's fairly symmetrical. Maybe this top part here is a little bit longer. And there's a seal. So for the next process, we're going to be removing the motor. Now, I did have to do this once to kind of understand the procedure to access the main motor. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to relieve a bit of that tension on this particular screw right here. This is a number 1.5, quite rare to use, and we're going to completely detension by lifting it up. We're not going to take it out, but just enough to relieve a bit there. And then here we're going to need to take off these screws. Now you'll notice that these are tree-winged screws, security screws. There's 1, 2, there's 3 of them. So we're going to remove this, and this one. Luckily for me, I had this security bit. You usually get them in those type of, I don't know, 100 set screw parts, and you never use them. But here it seems to be a good occasion. I've actually got some better quality ones, but they're too large, and this one just seems to be the right size. So let's undo this. Now, warning, again for your fingers, you don't want that cage to snap onto your finger. Let's take that one off. This one's slightly longer on that side. Oh, so you just heard that snapping closed. And the reason why you don't want your fingers there. And this one. You'll notice one of the tips, or the tip of this spring is latched onto here. We're gonna just take that off. There you go. So now this arm should be free. We now need to take off the C-clip here, and there's another one on this side. You should be able to remove now this arm. Mine was quite loose since I already removed it previously, but it was a little bit harder to take off before. Previously I thought that this pin would be somehow removable. That isn't the case. What we need to do now is this part right here, we're going to lift it over the pin rather. It's quite hard, but there you go. Clicked it off, and now this is fully open. Now we can remove that spring inside here, and that's what I'm about to do. Eventually by opening this up, moving about the arm here, you should be able to completely close the ring, and then after it will be quite easy to remove without nearly any tool. So there you can see I've opened it up. Now you can kind of push that over. There you go, we've got that as well. Now on the other side, this cover now can be removed. This part here was particularly hard to remove, and it did make me question whether it was removable. I was thinking maybe it was very hardly pressed in. It probably is. So if you really need to actually access this for whatever reason, then go ahead. If you don't, I would not touch this part because you have a very serious chance of damaging it. The way I removed it initially was using a flat-headed screwdriver and kind of going around lifting it up. I would probably suggest to use something more like this type of tool, which can go around and lift up more evenly and avoid damaging it. So to take that off, you essentially lift it quite by force. Now the issue is when you're going to put that back in, that's probably going to be quite loose. So I'm going to just lift up mine to illustrate. There you go, we got that off. And once you've done that, you can now take out the motor, and you'll notice very closely here there's some splines, and that is what's holding that part when it's rotating. Let's work on the B pivot top knuckle, so you can definitely open this up with no issues. Take off that screw first. And actually this derailleur was damaged right here. You can see there's a crack, probably from a shock. Here there's a C-clip. Let's remove that. you'll need to position that C-clip into the right location where there's the opening. My one's just undone itself already, and so on the inside, so we have this plate with the seal. There's the spring, small tip facing towards us. Let's push out this bolt. It's quite hard to take off. I might have to push down. There you go. A bit more. See if we can. Yeah, it's coming off. For the sake of the video, there. At this stage, you'll want to clean yours. I'm not going to do that because I don't need to. I will, however, put or assemble back the parts. So let's insert back that seal, the rubber ring, the bolt. We'll have that spring, the longer tip going inwards. There's a hole at the back where the tip of that spring inserts. There. We then have this plate with the plastic seal, so the other tip of that spring is going to go into that hole. Grab a number 2.5 Allen key wrench, insert one end into that hole. We're going to use our hand as leverage to twist this plate here to go in front of that stopping part. So you use that to turn around, stop. Grab the C-clip to go underneath the wedge underneath the bolt, which keeps everything in place. Of course, you'll have a limit screw to put back here. I'm not going to do that for this video, as this derailleur will be going in the bin shortly. Let's pop that spring back in. So you'll need to kind of get the other tip of this spring, lift it up so this one can latch onto the part right there. You may need a tool to help you guide it over, but it's the same procedure as when we removed it. We're going to close it and then get that hook to go over it. Okay, and that's done. So it should be like this. Here we have the motor to insert back in. Make sure that this that circular part is well seated in this plate or the body, like so. Grab the cover again, make sure that it's properly seated in there. The first time I did it, it was overlapping. Let's put those security screws to make sure everything stays nicely in place for us to work for on the rest of the derailleur. So there's one screw that's particularly long, and that's going on this side. We're going to need our tri-wing security bits to screw this back down. I was thinking where I've seen these before recently. I remember opening up a Game Boy Color, and they have those same type of screws. This arm's going to need to go back over that pin. You will need to use again the flathead screwdriver or something to help you get that over. Let's pop that C-clip back underneath there. We've got this part here to put back on. I've actually taken it on and off 2 times now, so it's not pressing on like it was the first time. You will need to probably use a plier to kind of try and evenly put it back on, as it's quite tight the first time at least the first time I did it. That'll do for me. Then we've got the arm. So the arm is going to go somewhere around about here. You'll need to screw down that little security bit there, the tri-wing. There's also going to be a spring there that we're going to need to re-latch on back onto that pin that was holding it. I did want to put that on first because it's obviously easier, but then after we're going to have to screw this on with the tension of that spring, which might be quite difficult. So I think I'm going to do this part first. C-clip for this other side. This one's a little bit hard. We need to lift up the other tip of that spring, like I said before, and put it back onto that pin. Indeed, it's going to be a struggle, particularly because the other spring is so close. I'm going to use this flat-headed screwdriver, and I'm going to have to push against something to gain a bit of leverage. If anything, you want to put this last because it gave you better access to these parts here when you're installing them. Alright, for the bottom knuckle, we'll have a seal. Stick that back on. You'll have this spring. So looks fairly symmetrical. I don't think it's going to make much difference what one you decide to put it in. There's a hole here at the back, so you want to get that tip of the spring into the hole. I can't show on the camera, it's a little bit too dark, but make sure that it goes in and that it's engaged. Grab the bolt and run it through that cage. Make sure that that little ring is still on the and it hasn't fallen off. Now obviously use some grease. I won't be using, I might use some now actually. Bit of old Shimano grease. Put a bit of that there. Right, got that through. Then grab this little ring. Now you'll see inside there's a little groove. That groove there is going to sit on that bolt that we just ran through. Then after for this tip, for this spring tip, there'll be 2 holes, a left and a right. The left will be more tension, the right less tension. I'm going to put it on my right. Now you're going to need a number 5, and we're going to start to screw that down. We're then going to twist that around, put that against something. We're going to need that little stopper bolt. You can now grab the pulley. The one at Smart G pulley will be towards the top. You can stick that on. Take the outer cage, put the bolt, run that through. Not too tight. Now take the tension pulley. Tighten up. Okay, completed. Don't forget to screw your little screw here for the tension in the spring, as well as the limit screws here. I'm not going to do that for mine since I won't be using it. So thank you for listening. I hope this helped you somehow service your Ultegra 6770 rear derailleur. Until next time, thank you for listening. Peace out.